Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. It's week 4 and I just thought I'd do a little video to catch up with how you're going. Hope you're having a good weekend. I had a good weekend the weekend past. I was lucky last weekend. I got to go down to Warrnambool to have a look at the whales. You can see by that picture behind me on the wall that I actually really like whales. And they were in the bay as they are at this time of the year. They come in to calve and yeah, it was fantastic to get to see them. Okay, so we're here to talk about Dylan, which is assessment 1.3, so that's your next assessment. And I'm optimistic and hopeful that most of you have completed the Board of Directors assessment 1.2 and that you've managed to get that in on time. So this one isn't due for a couple of weeks, and you can check the outline of the assessment and the due dates and everything under the assessments tab, and if you click on assessment 1.3 you'll be able to see that there. So just to spend a little bit of time sort of catching up, you know, when we do an online unit like this, it's really easy to kind of feel isolated and kind of like you're invisible to me and to each other. So make sure that if you've got some questions that you're posting them on either the general discussion board or the discussion board that I've set up specifically for assessment 1.3. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Lots of people have questions, and it's been really great to hear from some of the students with questions around assessment 1.2 so far. It's lovely to know when you teach in an online environment there's actually someone out there. So don't be afraid to do that. Okay, so in weeks 3 and 4, you are going to be looking at goal setting. You're going to be thinking about risk management and some of the risk factors for chronic disease, chronic condition, self-management. And you're going to be meeting a young guy called Dylan. Some of you might be like Dylan, some of you might know somebody like Dylan, or there'll be some characteristics of the scenario that you might be able to align with yourself. So this scenario is written by a colleague of ours, Dr. Carol McKinstry, who is an OT, and she's really heavily involved in football in Bendigo. So she's the president, the first female president actually of the Bendigo the Bendigo Football Netball League. And she spends a lot of her time at the football, as do I. I'm a pretty keen football and netball supporter, and I actually do a lot of volunteering in my own town here in Ocean Grove, and I'm on some of the committees down here. So football is something that is a language that many of us speak, but not all of us. So some of you might not know much about football. That doesn't matter. The scenario is about the chronic conditions and self-management, not about the football. So there's some background there about Dylan, the sort of person that he is and some of the things that he's facing. He's an asthmatic, well, maybe not a very good asthmatic, whatever that means. What is a good asthmatic? But there's some issues there within the scenario for you to get your teeth into. So one of the things that you really want to do to begin looking at the scenario is to think about, well, what's in here? What is it that's interesting within this scenario around Dylan and his chronic conditions self-management? So some of the things that sort of popped directly into my head when I was looking at it, you know, Dylan's a footballer. He's very serious about his sport. Probably doesn't want to acknowledge that he's got, you know, an issue or a chronic condition. You can see he's pretty fast. He likes to run. He got 13 on the beat test. For those of you that don't know what that is, you can Google it. It's basically a test of speed and endurance that many athletes undertake. The other things that spring to mind to me about Dylan is that he's a first-year uni student. And I think about things like, how's he managing with his studies? How's his time management going? Is he under the pump with assessments? Is he getting enough sleep? Has he got any friends? Does he know anybody? How's he balancing his football commitments with his university commitments? Maybe he's got a part-time job. How are things going for him living away from home? This might be his first time out of home. And we know that some of the research says that young people with chronic conditions, when they first move out of home, don't manage that well with things like their medications. Sometimes the parent is always taking care of that for them, as far as getting their prescriptions and making sure that they're taking things like preventers, and that moving out of home can be a trigger for poor management of those sorts of things. I wonder if he's eating okay. You know, you can have a look in the scenario and it does mention that he's skinny. You know, he may not have a particularly good diet. I wonder if he has any, he's had breathing problems before, and whether he sort of passes those off as just being out of breath. You can, in the scenario, it talks about the trainer at the football club. You know, did the trainer do the right thing? You know, did the trainer follow a protocol? Should the trainer have done some more? How detailed was he with his questioning to Dylan when he actually went out to him on the field? You think about Dylan's mum. It says there that his mum didn't think it was asthma. You wonder, you know, how much Dylan's parents and his mum know about asthma. You know, do they know what the risk factors are? Do they know what the signs of the disease are? You know, and how good at actually managing a prevention plan are they? Dylan didn't go to the doctor. Why not? Why wouldn't Dylan go to the doctor? Does he have enough money to go to the doctor? Does he know how to find a bulk billing doctor? Is there one on campus? You know, all of those sorts of things could be some of the reasons why Dylan didn't go to see the doctor. He did buy a puffer though, so that's something. What did he tell the pharmacist? You know, what role does the pharmacist play here? You know, can you just, and you can these days actually walk into a pharmacy and ask for a Ventolin puffer? It doesn't have to be on a prescription. So, you know, what is the long-term follow-up around somebody who might need a Ventolin script? So, yeah, the pharmacist could play a role there too. Has anyone shown him how to use a puffer? Which is an interesting one. You know, there are many people out there who have Ventolin puffers who've never been shown how to use them properly. You know, the best delivery method for Ventolin is actually through a spacer, but, you know, there are plenty of people who just have a puffer in their pocket. And being at the netball club where I am, I've seen heaps and heaps of athletes with puffers just for what they call exercise-induced asthma, and I've seen some pretty ordinary technique as well. So, you know, that's an interesting thing to think about. You could also even, you know, start to think about things like health literacy. You know, does Dylan have good health literacy? Does he know about prevention? Does he know about risk factors? Does he know about all those sorts of things? So that's a bit of a quick list, but it gives you some sense of the sorts of detail that you can get out of the scenario that we've given you around what some of those risk factors might be. Okay. So all of the things that I've just said, and you can find many more, could be considered things like risk factors. So you might want to start to make a bit of a list of those. So the purpose of developing a list of risk factors is so you can go on and start to think about writing some goals, and that's really the key part of this assessment. Okay, so I might write perhaps that Dylan is at risk of increased stress levels, being a university student, trying to manage his time, playing sport, all of those sort of things. So some of the strategies that I might use if I met someone like Dylan in my practice is that I'd talk to him, you know, perhaps undertake a stress tool to measure his levels of stress, talk to him about things like his sleep, his eating, see how his studies are going, see if he's getting to class, whether he's made any friends. I might ask him to keep a diary for me, perhaps to give me a snapshot of a typical 24-hour a day. You know, these are the things that you will actually do with someone when you're setting a self-management plan. So make sure you watch the Week 3 TED Talk that's part of the module for last week, for Week 3, and think about behaviour change related to education. So there's a lot of tools that we use in practice in health promotion, you know, things like motivational interviewing, cue and response, you know, and a lot of those other things that we've given to you as part of the module, and you'll be able to read through those at your own leisure. Okay, so the key around this assessment is really around, there's two keys really. So one of them is around risk factors, and you need to be able to specify 5 risk factors for Dylan. And then the other thing you need to do is go on and to develop some SMART goals for Dylan. So SMART goals are very important in self-management of chronic conditions, and really important in any health discipline. It is, it is really a skill that many people in the field are not very good at. They don't have a very well developed skills around SMART goals. I've seen this in practice, and Mandy, who's the professor of rural health at the Bendigo campus, told me recently she was at a conference and people were putting up what they thought were SMART goals, but in actual fact that they weren't. So we wanted you to leave this subject and to leave your course with a good idea of how to write a SMART goal. And this will be used later in assessment 1.4 as you move into looking at care plans as well. So it's important that you get it right now. So a SMART goal, the SMART stands for it's an acronym. So